So Matt Taibbi did his Twitter thread, and he got access. So Elon Musk chose him to reveal to the world all how the shenanigans that were going on behind the scenes between Twitter and political organizations and the government and what have you to censor.
A Substack, man. Why didn't he go to the Uber stack of blue check?
So when it first started, they first started censoring on Twitter just to get rid of people who were doing financial fraud and spam. So
Right.
they came up with a way to do that, to get rid of those people. But then they kept extending that. And now, well, by 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back handled. So the Biden team, meaning his political campaign, would send an email to the people at Twitter. They would review it and then implement what the Biden team asked. Celebrities and unknown alike could be removed or reviewed at the behest of a political party. And then he shows it. So that's real James Woods. Remember when he got banned? So so this is part of the document saying, hey, let's get rid of him. And it came at the request from a political party. Both parties had access to these tools. For instance, in 2020, requests from both the Trump White House and the Biden campaign were received and honored. However, get this. So then he tells a story about the system's not balanced because there's a lot more Democrats and those shit libs working at Twitter as opposed to people who vote Republican. So the system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts. Because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation, meaning Democrats, there were more channels, more ways to complain, open to the left, well, Democrats than the right. So if you had a problem with Twitter and you were a Democrat, you probably had a lot more contacts at Twitter that you could get your problems taken care of than if you were a Republican or a right-winger. That's what that means. Okay. The resulting slant in content moderation decisions is visible in documents you're about to read. However, it's also the assessment of multiple current and former high-level executives. So watch this. So here's the Twitter file. So on October 14th, 2020, the New York Post published Biden's secret emails, an expose based on the contents of Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop. Twitter took extraordinary steps to suppress the story, removing links and posting warnings that it may be unsafe. They even blocked its transmission via direct message, a tool hitherto reserved for extreme cases like child pornography.
Well, I mean, what was on the laptop?
White House spokeswoman Kayleigh McEnany was locked out of her Twitter account for tweeting about this story.
I remember that.
Promoting a furious letter from Trump campaign staffer Mike Hahn, who seethed at least pretend to care for the next 20 days. So he sends this email to Twitter like, hey, you guys are asswipes, and you're not even pretending to not be biased. So then this led public policy executive Carolyn Strom to send out a polite what the fuck query. Several employees noted that there was tension between the communications and policy teams at Twitter, who had little or less control over moderation, and the safety trust teams.
It's a shame that Elon fired those great people.
Yeah. So there was an inner squabble between the communications policy teams and the safety trust teams. They didn't trust each other. Was it Yol?
Was Yol not?
Was y'all? So here's that. Hey team, are you able to take a closer look at this? That's from when Trump's communications person got banned.
That's a corporate way of saying what.
Yeah, that's the corporate way. Hey, could you take a closer look, assholes? Strom's note returned the answer that the laptop story had been removed for violation of the company's hacked materials policy.
Why would I care that a thing was hacked materials
Why would you care? Per checking, the user was bounced by site integrity for violating our hacked materials policy, adding them here for further insights and guidance. Who said that? Elaine Angsato. She's an ops analyst. Global escalations team. Don't you want to be part of a global escalations? I want to escalate thing, and I want to do it on a global level.
I don't think she is anymore. a bunch of people started tweeting at her when they saw this email, and within about 5 minutes, she deleted her Twitter account.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
So she's not part of Twitter anymore.
So she was harassed off of Twitter.
She was harassed off it. Although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in the laptop story. In fact, that might have been the problem. So he's talking about foreign governments. That's what he's talking, right? Is that what he's referring to here?
Yes.
Yes.
And every blue check liberal on Twitter can't read, so they thought he was saying no government intervention.
Meaning United
whatsoever.
States government, although in previous tweets he showed that the Trump White House had interfered.
Yeah.
Yeah. The decision was made at the highest levels of the company, but without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, with former head of legal policy and trust, Vijayagare.
Oh, she's the best.
Playing a key role. She's such a liar.
Remember on Rogan?
Yes, she's such a scummy liar. I was able to see right through her. How do you say her name? Vijaya? They just freelanced it, is how one former employee characterized the decision. Hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that wasn't going to hold. But no one had the guts to reverse it.
You don't reverse Vijaya.
You don't reverse Vijaya. You can see the confusion in the following lengthy exchange, which ends up including Vijaya and former Trust and Safety Chief Joel Roth. Communications official Trenton Kennedy writes, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for marking this as unsafe. So now I can read you this. I don't know how interesting it is. I'll read it real fast. So Trenton Kennedy says, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for making this unsafe, and I think the best explainability, meaning what's our excuse for doing this? Our excuse for doing this, for this externally, would be that for what we tell people outside. So what the lie is, so what he said, what Trenton Kennedy is saying, while they're censoring other people for lying, he's trying to figure out what's our lie going to be to the outside world for censoring honest reporting. What's our lie?
Let's get our story straight.
Let's get our story straight. What our lie is about what when we're pretending other people are lying. So exactly the exact opposite was happening.
Look, will we also mark similar stories as unsafe?
Yeah. So the exact opposite was happening. So what you think is Twitter is taking down misinformation and people who are lying. The exact opposite. What they're doing is lying so they can take down accurate information. They're misinforming you and spreading conspiracy theories. Who's doing that? Twitter. Twitter is spreading conspiracy theories and lying so they can censor accurate, honest information.
Jimmy, Sam Harris here.
Sam Harris.
I think we all knew this, and I think it was obvious that they did this, and it was none of this compares to
Trump University. None of this can compare to just Trump University.
None of it. They could have a body in the basement.
They could have
in the server room.
Yeah,
could be filled with bodies, but it wouldn't be as bad as Trump University.
So then he says down here, Katie Rosenbar says, will we also mark similar stories unsafe? And she links to this other story that's coming from Fox News that says Hunter Biden emails Senate Homeland Security Committee is investigating hard drive of the laptop. So like, should we have to censor that? So they're all sitting there going,
help us lie together.
Help us lie together. By this point, everyone knew this was effed, said one former employee. But the response was essentially to err on the side of continuing to keep airing. So they didn't want to stop censoring willy-nilly.
Yeah.
They had to slow roll their censor. They immediately censored, but the uncensoring takes a while. You got to go through the channels. I'll read this to you. The policy basis is hacked materials, though as discussed, this is an emerging situation where the facts remain unclear. So maybe you stop censoring until you know what the facts are. and stop spreading conspiracy theories until you know what the facts are. That's not what Twitter did. Twitter did the exact thing they claimed to be stopping other people from doing.
I'd rather suppress 1,000 innocent true stories than let a single disinformation go free.
Former Vice President of Global Communications, Brandon Borman, asks, can we truthfully claim that this is part of our policy?
Oh, my God.
Can we really say that? How much lying are we going to do? Here it is. He says, to Ian's point, can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy? As part of our approach to addressing potentially hacked materials, we are limiting visibility of related stories on Twitter while our investigation is ongoing. Can we truthfully claim that's part of our policy?
Hacked material. I love that. As if
Hacked.
I give a shit
Right.
that anything was hacked because Hillary lost one time.
So Matt then says, to which former Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker again seems to advise staying on the non-course because caution is warranted. So then this guy comes in and says, no, we don't know yet what the story is, so we should be cautious. Being cautious means to silence someone else's free speech. That's their caution. Don't you think you would be cautious about silencing someone's free speech? Wouldn't that be where you show caution? Not in this day and age, and not when it comes to Twitter and the Democratic Party. It's censor first, caution later.
You're not looking at rights as those pesky things we need to get around.
That's right.
You know how like we don't torture. Like we always torture, but then we're like, look, we don't have time to be bogged down with laws about not torturing.
That's right. A fundamental problem with tech companies and content moderation may be people in charge of speech know and care little about speech and have to hold the basics by outsiders. So here, Ro Khanna sends an email and he's like, hey, I'm worried about free speech. And the guys at Twitter think about the Twitter policies.
Right.
They don't think about actual First Amendment issues. They're like, no, it's our policies. It's okay. And Ro Khanna says there's going to be a backlash. And they say to him, no, we appreciate the heads up. But we put out a clarifying thread, tweets earlier this evening to explain our policy. No, Ro Khanna's talking about the policy of the First Amendment, asswipe. That's what Ro Khanna was talking about. And how much you want
to bet that that's to help you idiots?
That's right.
Get around it, because I didn't hear him say shit about any of this until this got leaked just now.
Right. So Ro Khanna tries to reroute the conversation to the First Amendment, mention of which is generally hard to find in these files. So Ro Khanna says, hope you're well, Vijay, but this seems a violation of the First Amendment principles. If there's a hack of classified information or other information that could expose a serious war crime and the New York Times was to publish it, I think the New York Times should have that right. A journalist should not be held accountable for the illegal actions of the source unless they actively aided in the hack. So, to restrict the distribution of that material, especially regarding a presidential candidate, seems not in the keeping of the principles of New York Times versus Sullivan. I say this as a total Biden partisan and convinced he didn't do anything wrong, but the story now has become more about censorship than the relatively innocuous emails, and it's become a bigger deal than it would have been. It's also is now leading to serious efforts to curtail Section 230, many of which would have been a mistake. I believe Twitter itself should curtail what it recommends or puts in trending news, and your policy against QAnon groups is all good. It's a hard balance.
Oh, Ro Khanna to Vijaya It's become a real Bollywood soap opera back and forth.
But in the heat of the presidential campaign, restricting dissemination of newspaper articles, even if New York Post is far right, seems like it will invite more backlash than it will do good.
He wants to help him cover things up better.
So he doesn't really care about the principle of it. Yeah. He cares about this is going to actually hurt the Biden campaign. This is going to hurt our side.
This is like when Jon Stewart brings up, like, can our empire afford?
Can we afford to do all these imperialism? So that's what he was really up. So that's what it was about. So within a day, head of public policy Lauren Culbertson receives a ghastly letter report from Carl Szabo of the research firm NetChoice, which had already pulled 12 members of Congress, 9 Republicans and 3 Democrats from the House Judiciary Committee to Representative Judy Chu's office, my old representative. Yesterday, Net Choice's Chris Marchese met informally with 9 Republicans. So Net Choices let Twitter know a bloodbath awaits in upcoming Hill hearings, with members saying it's a tipping point, complaining tech has grown so big that they can't even regulate themselves. So government may need to intervene.
What,
so
more?
Right? So, okay. Sabo reports to Twitter that some Hill figures, meaning politicians and Capitol Hill, are characterizing the laptop story as tech's Access Hollywood moment.
What does that mean?
That's the grab 'em by the pussy moment, right?
Yep.
Wasn't that Access Hollywood, right? Yeah. When asked just how bad the situation is, one staffer said, it's tech's Access Hollywood moment and has no Hillary to hide behind. Others were more blunt. Tech is screwed, and rightfully so. Now, let me just stop right here for a second and say, I don't think anybody's screwed, because they did all this at the behest of the establishment. And so now the establishment's out there saying this is a nothing burger, and and they're trying to say that Matt Taibbi shouldn't have even reported this. So there's nothing's going to happen that you think should happen. Nothing will happen. Go ahead, Matt. Let me bring in Jackson. What do you say?
He's just doing the bidding of the richest billionaire on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, did you see all those tweets? It
Yes.
was just copy and paste. I think the most damning part of that, though, whoops, my little light went out. I think the most damning part of that was the fact that Twitter's own general counsel was like, there's clear indication that this was not hacked materials. Therefore, you should not be banning the spokesperson of the White House in the lead up to the presidential election. You probably should, and they continue to do it anyways.
And I think one of the oldest newspaper in the country. I'm pretty sure that might be. I could be wrong about that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Vijaya Gade and what's his name, Yoel Roth. They took took point on this one.
So then he reveals Sabo's letter contains chilling passages relaying Democratic lawmakers' attitudes about this. They want more censorship. And as for the Bill of Rights, they say it's not an absolute. This is what the Democrats on the Hill in Washington were saying. They're not upset that you guys, they're upset you're not doing more censorship.
We need a Jack Bauer of censorship.
That's right. An amazing subplot of the Twitter Hunter Biden laptop affair was how much was done without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, and how long it took for the situation to get unfucked. As one ex-employee put it, even after Jack Dorsey jumped in. There are multiple instances in the files of Dorsey intervening to question suspensions and other moderation actions for accounts across the political spectrum. The problem with the hacked materials ruling, several sources said, was that this normally required an official law enforcement finding of a hack. But such a finding never appears throughout what one executive describes as a whirlwind 24-hour company-wide mess. So it's been a whirlwind 96 hours for me, too. There is much more to come, including answers to questions about issues like shadow banning. I know I'm shadow banned, boosting, follower accounts, the fate of various individual accounts, and more. These issues are not limited to the political right. Okay, well, Jackson, what do you have to say about? I mean, what I have to say about this, I already said, is that nothing's going to happen to anybody. Twitter is still censoring. In fact, the proof of it is you woke up today and found out that you were censored from Twitter, and they gave you a bullshit reason that it was for spamming, and that which means nothing. And they won't even give you a reason, and they won't. There's no recourse, and that's that. They did it to Garland Nixon. They still haven't let the doctors back on, Dr. Malone and Dr. I'm blanking on his name. But anyway. Go ahead, Jackson. Take it from here.
Anyone who has the capability of buying a web platform for $44 billion is not going to stand up for the most dispossessed or those who are facing the most amount of raw imperialistic power, for example, which is what we try to fight against here. But what I think is so incredible about this story is not that it's limited to this. It's that there's probably dozens and dozens and dozens of examples in which this exact situation played out to a far lesser extent, far less chaotic extent within Twitter, within Meta, within YouTube, all these different, companies. And this is just how they operate. And there is a consensus amongst all of these Silicon Valley tech workers that this is just life. This is the First Amendment, and that we should censor anyone who challenges the official narratives. And you don't even have to speculate all that much about that, because one of Twitter's co-founders, I think his name was like Biz or something. Did you see that tweet? He came out and said, oh my God, he came out and tweeted about Matt Taibbi, and he said, this is just so heartbreaking because we all at Twitter protected so many major global events to protect so many brave, courageous people. So basically saying we covered up a bunch of crazy major global events that went on to protect people, just like he views what Twitter did in this story as protecting Hunter and Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's called censorship. That's called anti-free speech. That's called anti-First Amendment.
Well, one day we'll get that pesky amendment taken away, but until then, we have Twitter to protect us.
Well, I know people in Hollywood who used to be called free speech absolutists, like Paul Provenza, who did he used to
Paul's
host.
Now not that.
Paul used to host the Green Room.
Yeah, I used to do
and very fantastic show. I love the Green Room. I love Paul Provenza. I met him in Europe doing comedy. Is where I actually met him, and he's fantastic. And that book he did called Satiristas is a great book, right? Even though I'm not in it.
I think I'm in it.
But I know that he considered himself a free speech absolutist. But I also know he hates Trump. So I wonder how that's a tough pickle for guys like that, right?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a long time.
I haven't talked to him either. I would love to talk to him, find out. Maybe we'll have him on the show. But yeah, I'd like to hear what comedians. Are you shocked, Kurt, at the comedies not standing up for free speech?
It depends how corporate you are. If you got where's your bread buttered, and then that's who says that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I forget his name. It's not. I wouldn't mess it. But there's a bunch of stories like that where it's like, like where people I know of who personally like sold themselves out to toe the line because they get a lot of work, commercials or whatever. Where are you getting your money from? That's what governs it.
All right. Any last words on this story, Jackson? We're going to go to another one.
I think unless you're willing to bring back the most vile people on the internet, then you're not a free speech absolutist, precluding any illegal behavior.
If you're not for, as Chomsky said decades ago, if you're not for the freedom of speech of people you despise, then you're not for freedom of speech.
I love how all this protecting us stuff, and there was like gaping asshole pornography on
all
Twitter
over the place
the entire time. I did stuff where I was like, "That's on Twitter."
Like you ever scroll what people will do is like whatever is a trending topic, they'll put a hashtag and then they'll have a video of them banging someone in their cornhole.
That's how you get your, I guess.
And you're like, it's like I didn't want to see. It's like you're.
No,
right?
Follow.
Isn't it amazing when you see, like, for me anyway, when I'll see a Twitter model, an X-rated model, and then you click on their Twitter feed, and then it's just like, it's like you've been in a strip. After you've been in a strip club for like too long, you just want it's all numb. You got to get the hell out of there. It doesn't do anything for you anymore. Yeah. It's immediately like that on Twitter. Like as soon as I see that, it's just like that is gross.
It's just bizarre that's not even a. We talk about all the censorship. You told me when I was like a kid that would be the censorship argument.
Yeah, right.
Is where you could talk about different kinds of medicines or
right.
See full anal penetration. That doesn't even come up in the debate.
You can see full anal, but you can't talk about different medicines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, December 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th. And we're going to be in Tempe, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets. See you there.